I've got a brick, I've got some wood, and I've got some spray paint. Did you know that not all beliefs are created equal? Like, as in, not every belief that you have is the same value. It doesn't hold the same weight, which is why it's so important for us to have different categories for the beliefs that we hold, the convictions that we have. So I have this Bible that I used when I was young, and if you open it up to Proverbs chapter 1, you'll see that the entire chapter of Proverbs 1 is highlighted. And then you turn the page to chapter 2, and the entire chapter is highlighted. It's bright yellow. And the interesting thing is that if everything's highlighted, well, it's basically like nothing's highlighted, right? It's either all important or not important, and it's hard to distinguish what really stands out. So I like to have this thing that I call bucket theology. At Trinity, we basically have 3 buckets that we put our different beliefs in. And so you've got these core beliefs, and these core beliefs are sort of like a brick, right? A core belief is foundational. It can bear the full weight of the entire structure of your faith. And so these core beliefs are essential, or if they break, then the entire structure falls down. As in, if your core belief, if it turns out that it's not true, your entire faith will crumble. And so an example of a core belief would be the resurrection of Jesus Christ. For if Jesus was not raised from the dead, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. And so core beliefs are essential, and you don't want to have any core beliefs in there that if they crumble, your whole faith would crumble. So there are things that you've got to be completely confident in, like the resurrection, or maybe the Trinity is another example of core beliefs that you want that bucket to be nice and small. You don't want to put simple things like the color of the carpet in the sanctuary in your core beliefs, because if you find out that it should be a different color, man, you might walk away from your faith entirely. But then there's the second, which is wood, and this sort of represents the persuasions. This is like the studs in your house. It's like the walls, it's the structure of the house. When you put this second level of beliefs up, it starts to form something, and it can bear the weight of the roof, and it starts to look like something specific. These are your persuasions. These beliefs are beliefs that you're persuaded of through reading scripture that are absolutely important, but not essential to the Christian faith. And so this might be things like church governance, like believing that there should be an elder board, or that a church should be led by the congregation, right? Or another could be maybe denominational distinctives, or when it comes to baptism, maybe you have the persuasion that someone should be dunked, through immersion versus being sprinkled, right? There's different persuasions that people have, but they're not essential. Sometimes you can tear down one wall and erect another one, right? So then there's a third bucket, or the third type, which is opinion, right? And opinions are sort of the third bucket that's the least important, the least essential. And that would sort of be like, maybe you believe that Christians should not watch R-rated movies. That's an opinion that's important, but it's not essential. And you wouldn't even call it a persuasion that you find in scripture. It's just an opinion that you hold. Or maybe another persuasion would be the style of worship you think is best, or maybe an order of service. So these different buckets, they represent different things. They represent how firmly we hold to different types of beliefs. Why does all this matter? Well, in Romans chapter 14, Paul is trying to explain that Christians should have tolerance for one another, that inside the church, inside the body of believers, we should be united, and we can't allow there to be fractures in the church over non-essential issues, right? There are these different beliefs that people are having, and they're bringing them to the table, and they're allowing them to promote quarreling within the church, and it's completely unnecessary because they're not foundational core beliefs. Paul says in chapter 14 of Romans, verse 1, it says, accept other believers who are weak in faith and don't argue with them about what they think is right or wrong. And then he goes on to talk about eating different things. And he talks about how they're condemning other believers based on the foods that they choose to eat or what day of the week they choose to honor God. And he's saying, guys, we need to have a different perspective. In fact, in verse 19, he says, so then let us aim for harmony in the church and try to build each other up. We should try to build each other up, not tear one another down with quarrels. If we're going to fight about something, it better be a core belief that we are standing on. And so I believe that if the basic truth of the good news is not violated, that we should not quarrel or be divided. We can't be divided over things that aren't surrounding the basic truth of the good news of Jesus Christ. Now, it doesn't mean we can't debate opinions and persuasions. No, of course we can debate those, but we can't let them become quarrels within the church. We can't let it lead to fighting in the church. Instead, we must be united because we've got a mission and we have good news to share with the world. And that is where we should be focused. So I pray today you share the good news, that you remain united with the church, and that you keep the main things. And as St. Augustine said, or at least it's been attributed to him, he says, in essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty, and in all things, charity.